All right, guys, here we go again. Let me go ahead and see, can I get my intro going? All right, here we go again, guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the question is why home builders struggle with municipalities. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This is, I tell you, we deal with this right here all the time. Just home builders. As a matter of fact, home builders versus municipalities. And I mean, it's even at the point to where most home builders association, they typically have a government um, council that they deal with things that goes on with local municipalities. Now I'm gonna try to do things a little bit simpler here. Um, and I think I kind of got it messed up here, guys. I think I messed up my little camera as always. And guys, I'm still trying to learn this right here stuff. So yeah, excuse me if I can't quite get it right. Man, looks like I can't. Looks like I gotta figure out something on this right here. Let me just capture the screen. Let's see, got window capture, screen capture. Ah, that didn't get it. Man. And there we go. I think I got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, I want to go over how the municipal building department is set up first. And I'm going to talk about government at the same time. So I'm gonna try to go into that. And guys, I couldn't figure out how to make this right here slideshow work, but we're gonna go with what we got. So first and foremost, one thing that a home builder has to make. See, home builders are running a business, company, corporation. And when you're running a business, we talked about this earlier, talked about this in some of my previous videos. When you're running a business, one thing that you need to try to turn and make sure you do is make a profit. Gotta make a profit, guys. I can't, I just can't, I can't express how important it is to turn a profit. And that is, that's key. So one way that you make profit as a builder is you have to get things done on time. So you can't lose time. And you can't, if these municipalities have ordinances and things set up to where they're making you do additional items, that causes you to lose more money. And I go into a little bit more detail on that because, if they require you to do this, that, and just make you kind of jump through hoops in order to get building permits, it takes them a long time to turn around. Because see, at the same time, man, when that builder goes here and get this loan, he has to pay interest. The interest clock starts ticking. And so it's to your advantage as a builder to get this stuff done and get it done extremely quick. So that's the name of the game. And just let me see if I think I got this right here. I think it's better if I did it like this. Turn that guy off. Let me transition over to this one right here. So let's see well, I'll tell you what, man, I just can't figure this yet. I can't figure this stuff out, guys. This is gonna be a minute before I figure this stuff out. So, but the bottom line is you gotta get that time, and you can't be sitting here spending a whole lot of money on different items. So that's why it's critical that there needs to be a good relationship between the municipality and the builders. Today, guys, you have a lot of builders in certain municipalities, um, because of things were so difficult and you had so much red tape to climb through and break through in those local municipalities. Builders, it gets in the Home Builders Association, and builders just don't want to build there. They rather stay out of there. And I have a lot of builders, especially in a lot of these municipalities where you have a lot of African Americans. That's kind of like the mayor's African American. You got just about everybody that's on the board, council, and all those things. A lot of those guys are, predominantly African American, and I have a lot of my builder friends come to me, and they say, man, you should be able to get in there and get things done. Guys, I struggle through the same thing because it's not about. I don't think it's about color or anything like that. I just think it's about the structure of the entire process that you have to go through in order to build in certain municipalities. I'll be honest with you, like I'm gonna use this as an example. If I go to Hoover, I don't really have problems with Hoover because they have a system, and it may take you one or two houses to build in that system, but you kind of got that figured out, and it's consistent. But there are certain municipalities, there's no consistency at all. It really depends on who's there that day and just all that kind of stuff. And so that it makes it very difficult. But let's look at how the building department is set up, guys. The first thing you guys got to understand is you have what they call so each municipality. So when you have a municipality, your major municipalities, the first thing you're going to have is the governing body of that municipality. So you have a mayor and you have council members. I don't know, sometimes you have it set up to where the mayor have 2 votes versus the council member. You got a chairperson of the council. However that municipality is set up, guys, you kind of see I got one of them with a black mayor, one of them with a white mayor. I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to be biased. But you just you have those governing bodies. Now, what happens is typically the council votes on the building code. Now, you guys got to understand something too, man. Let me just kind of reach over here. I'm just gonna grab some. Guys, you got to understand that the building code itself. So when we deal with building code, this building code itself. Should type this in. Building codes. The building code is really a big safety manual. That's all it is. So in most of the building code, I think most municipalities have adopted the IRC, which is, for the home builders, it's called the International Residential Code. So it looks like this right here. Let me get, and guys, you can actually get that code book. This is what it looks like, guys. Now, what cycle they on? I think most municipalities is either on the 2018. They may not be on 2015, but you guys can actually go on here and you can pull up the code book for free. They got it online for free. So you can go ahead and you can actually search every last one of the codes right here online. But it is a big safety manual. And what has happened is over the years, people have gotten themselves into certain things, certain situations, and the code goes in, somebody goes in and amend the code to deal with that problem. So say, for instance, somebody got inside of a building and the building caught on fire and they only had one access to get to the outside or get outside. So a lot of people got burned up because everybody couldn't get out of that door and people died. And so they'll come back and they'll amend the code and they'll say, hey, in order to build this right here, you got this many people going to occupy this particular building. You need to have 3 points of egress of how you can get out of that building. You got to have 3 points and 3/4, and they create this. So the code really is just a big giant safety manual. That's all it is. And so what happens is these council members, I'm just going to go back here. These council members, they vote on trying to make sure that each building or each home that's built in that municipality is a safe dwelling for anybody who comes through that municipality. That's what they're doing. And that's why they amend these codes. So now, once they amend the code, so after the code is amended, they say, hey, we want to go by this particular code, and typically it's going to be the International Residential Code for residential and then the International Building Code for commercial structures. Once you amend that code, that municipality at that point is going to go hire the building official. They're going to kind of put that in the code as well, getting the building official and what his roles are, and actually the IRC actually tell you what his role is. If they adopt the entire IRC, then it comes along with the roles of the building official. So now you're going to look at what the building official does. So the building official at that point is going to be the person who actually typically is going to create a staff around them in order to make sure those structures are safe. That's what he's going to do. Okay. And typically the first person that a building official goes out and hire the MEP guys. And I thought I had a little picture here somewhere. I guess I didn't. He's going to go out and hire inspectors. Okay. He's going to hire, typically, now if it's a smaller municipality, they're going to hire, if they can't hire and they don't have the money or the resource in order to hire mechanical, electrical, and plumbing inspectors, solely mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and then you may have a fourth one for building. If they can't hire those guys, sometimes one or two of the guys got to wear 2 or 3 hats. When I was in Alabaster, when it was small, I wore all the hats. I was the building official. I had a couple of inspectors too, but we all did everything all together. So we did, I did electrical. I knew enough about the electrical code in order to enforce that. I knew enough about the IRC, plumbing, so I knew enough about it. But typically, the building official is going to go hire these guys. He's going to go hire these guys, put them on staff if you got enough resources to do that. So every time something is built, these guys got to, during the phases of it being built, those guys got to go out and check every last one of those. They got to check it to make sure it's built and it's code compliant. All right, before you cover up walls and things like that. So then the next person, once he get the inspectors together, he goes out and hire an office clerk. Now, the purpose of the office clerk is he or she, it could be a guy. I served as an office clerk too. I think we had issues in Alabaster where I had to end up being the office clerk and the zoning coordinator. But the office clerk is going to be the one that accepts the permits, the application for permits. So the submittals are going to go to that office clerk. And that office clerk job, and I should have wrote all this down too. I should have had some slides on this as well, is they're going to make sure the application or the submittal that you're making is complete. And there are certain things that the building official is going to want that office clerk to turn in, the set of the plans. You might have to have two copies of the plans. You may have to have, an erosion. Number one, you got to get an erosion control permit in most cases. Plot plan. Plot plan is going to be where that house sits on that lot. How it sits on that lot, how many feet, what the setbacks are. So you're going to turn those in along with the application, the cost of the structure that you're going to build or the house that you're going to build. It needs to be signed. They're going to make sure the whole submittal that you're submitting, they're going to make sure they got everything, because the last thing they want to do is pick up the phone and have to call you again and say, hey, you need to bring something else back down here. So now that's killing your time. So now you got to get up and you got to come back and you got to get these things into them. And then now it's got to go through the process again. No one wants to do that. That becomes a big problem. So that clerk, if you got a good clerk, that's what that clerk is going to do. And they're going to be very detailed on what you need to submit. And they usually have a checklist, which helps them out. Okay. So the next major person is probably the last person I have right here. That's going to be that's going to be your plans examiner. Okay. I just got a guy. I just pulled this guy offline somewhere. This may not be a plans examiner, but the plans examiner is going to take those plans that you submitted. Okay. And they're going to check, they're going to get the code book. We looked at earlier, we saw these code books right here. So that plans examiner is going to take that code book and they're going to take those plans and they're going to put them together and they're going to make sure that those plans are code compliant. That's what his job is. Okay. So you kind of see now, once you get your permit, once everything is submitted, once everything is submitted, it doesn't go straight to the building official or to anybody. Like it's going to go straight to the plans examiner first. Well, I'm sorry. Let me back. The first person it typically goes to is going to go to your planning coordinator or your planning person or your person who's over zoning. They're going to get it first. That's the first, because the first thing you got to make sure is that that structure that you're going to build is in sync with the zoning of that municipality. And guys, if you don't know this, right, if you don't know this, most municipalities have a 10-year plan, a 15 or 20-year plan. So things that they've already figured out what they're going to do in the next 20 years. There's a plan. This is what they're trying to do. You got to make sure that what you're turning in is consistent with their plan and it meets the zoning requirements. So say, for instance, if I want to build a residential home, but the property that you want to build it on is zoned for commercial, well, that's not going to fly. It's going to get rejected. And it's going to kick back out. And that zoning coordinator the zoning coordinator is going to deny it. And once they deny it, you're going to have to start the process all over again. So it's best that you check that stuff out. A lot of times you can go to the zoning coordinator and y'all can get that stuff ironed out and figured out first. Even if you, say for instance, you want to build a residential home, a single family residential home in a high density area where you have like apartment complexes, that's two different zoning requirements. And you trying to build a residential home on a, somewhere where apartment complex, that's going to get denied. Or vice versa, doesn't matter. And now there are ways that you can, if something gets denied the zone, and there's a process you can go through to try to get it rezoned. But, boy, that's killing your time. I mean, that's you talking about 6 or 7 months if they would allow it. Sometimes they don't allow it. So this is where it goes. So let's go to the zoning coordinator. So the permit clerk gets everything. They send the first part of the application to the zoning coordinator. Zoning coordinator is going to approve it. Once that's approved, then it's going to go to the plans examiner. Plans examiner is going to go through it, and she is going to make sure it's code compliant. And once it's code compliant, the plans examiner will let the building official know. And then the building official he goes through and check just to make sure everything is okay. Sometimes there are things like historical areas that has additional steps. Sometimes there's flood requirements. And then sometimes it goes to the building official can say, hey, I'm gonna give this to the city engineer to make sure they check it out too. It'll go there. And you just don't know what's gonna go on. But once it goes through everybody and the process is complete, building officials say, hey, we're gonna go ahead and issue a permit. And they go ahead and issue a permit. Guys, sometimes this process can take, 2 to 3 weeks. That's time. If you guys know anything about business, if you're dealing with business, 2 to 3 weeks, when you starting to top out on these interest payments, that could be $100 a day. So you kind of have an idea of how this thing flows. All right. So where we have problems as builders is sometimes we try to go in these municipalities and there's a breakdown in one of those items. One of those items, guys. So there's a breakdown. It could be a breakdown, and it can start. Everything starts and ends with that permit clerk. And that's why, guys, one thing that can happen, and here's another thing. Sometimes you're dealing with government. I just got to go, guys. Sometimes you're dealing with government in most cases, guys. These people are, in a lot of cases, I'm not saying this is for all municipalities, but in a lot of cases, they're going to be paid whether they do a good job or a bad job. So if they're not smiling, they're going to still be paid. This is where you have an issue at. So, and you just don't know what they wake up. Sometimes you don't know how these people wake up that day. This becomes a problem. Sometimes you have permit. I had a permit clerk one time that would just painful to deal with. Bad customer service, frown up at people when they walk. Because if you got a bad attitude, that's gonna make everything else fall apart. And builders, like I said, builders are very indifferent, so they don't want to see that stuff either. So, so these are the things that you had to deal with. Now we have a lot of these municipalities. What has happened is, like I said, if you got a breakdown in one of those systems, you got yourself a major problem. And so what ends up happening is now a lot of builders will pull away from even building in that municipality because it takes too long to get a permit, or even when you get a permit, you got problems. And there's another little system that they have a lot of time that the first thing you really have to do, and I forgot to go over this right here, guys, but if I go back to that lineup, the very first thing you got to do in that lineup, guys, is going to be, you got to get a business license. You have to get a business license first. Now, the cool thing about the business license, I think is a good thing, because now that's when they can check to make sure the builders have their license, they're able to build, they got a state license, and they can make sure a lot of other things that they have. But one thing that a lot of municipalities is making builders do is they're making them turn in a list of all of their subcontractors. Everybody's going to do work on that house. And when they turn that list in, that revenue, or wherever you get your business license from, is going to get that list, and they're going to make sure every last one of your subcontractors have a business license as well. Which I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. Not only do I don't think it's fair, but if you actually, in a lot of municipalities, and let's state it, if you actually look at how they word that into their ordinance, it says that the people who's doing contracts in that municipality. So yes, the home builder is actually contracting with somebody on that property. He's actually doing business in that area. I'll be turning around and sell it. Somebody's going to live in that house. They're going to live in that particular municipality. So you're actually contracted with someone that's right there. So yes, he needs to pay. He needs to get a business license there. The problem I have is, if I have a sheetrock subcontractor and we sign their contract, let's say I'm building a house in Alabaster, but me and the sheetrock contractor signed our contract between me and the sheetrock subcontractor, and we signed it over in Hoover. Well, that's a different venue. Has nothing to do with Alabaster. So Alabaster shouldn't be one that gets that he have to come in and get a because he's not really doing business, because he's contracted with me. He's not actually doing business in Alabaster. He did business with me in Hoover. That's the venue. You see? So that's why I have my little problem with that at. But you have to do that as well. And you got some municipalities that say, hey, look, if we don't have this has happened. If we don't have all of your subcontractors that you put on this list, if you don't have all of them to get their business license, we're going to hold your permit up, or we're going to hold up your certificate of occupancy. And guys, that becomes a nightmare. Becomes a big nightmare. Because I can't control my subcontractors. I just can't. Not like that. I can't force them to go down and get business license and all that kind of stuff. And they shouldn't force me to have to force them. So this becomes a headache. But the problem we have is that you got all these different things that can happen in that municipality. You can have a breakdown on any one of those. You can have an inspector that's his interpretation of the code, or something goes on that they're not on the same page. That's going to hold that job up. I just had a situation where, I had to install some guardrails on a retaining wall of a house. And the code says you have to anything that's 30 inches above the ground and there's a walking surface there, you got to put a retaining wall there. I mean, you got to put guardrails there, but there was no walking. My interpretation of walking surface was different. Walking surface to me is something that's impervious, something, like concrete, something you can walk on. Walking surface for that inspector was, hey, it's flat. It didn't matter. If you got grass, if you can walk on it, that's a walking surface. Well, that cost me, cost the homeowner, what, 25, about $2,500. You see how the costs go up now? You know, so things like that. So you can have a breakdown anywhere. So a lot of times you get a lot of builders don't want to go build in these municipalities for whatever reason, for that reason, because of lack of, it's chaos in a lot of these municipalities when you go in there, especially some of these big metropolitan areas. It's just chaos. You can't get anything done. And I'm losing time. And if I lose time, I'm losing money. And if I'm losing money, I'm losing profit. So they just don't want to be in that stuff. So then what happens next? What happens next is these municipalities create these incentives, because here's the thing. A lot of these like major metropolitan areas that are really big, especially inner city, they got a lot of abandoned houses, and those abandoned houses are not helping anybody. They're just kind of sitting there, and it's just a waste. And the city can't generate tax revenue off of these abandoned houses or just empty lots, just a lot, not even with a house on it. It's burnt down, or it was abated by the city, and they're just not doing anybody any good. They're just sitting there. So the city needs to make tax revenue, because like you have property taxes. Those property taxes go in a big bucket with the city so that you can grow the revenue of the city. And yeah, that can help the schools and help everything, help everybody out. So a lot of these major municipalities are not getting this money. So what happens next? They got to do some kind of incentive to get people to come back to the city and build. They got to get builders like myself to come back there and build. But the builders are like, man, we don't want to go back because they got too much chaos going on over there. And this happens. And then also what happens is you got people in the city try to be business people. They try to conduct business. See, I just think that they should allow the businessman, make it fair, or create a staff that got their act together, so that you don't have breakdowns in that little system that I just explained. So these guys out here doing business, they hey, we can do this, we can do that. And then in a lot of cases, the biggest problems that I've seen in a lot of these municipalities, I've reached out to municipalities and we've talked about things like this. In the state of Alabama have the highest, let's see, let's try to see if I can see redemption. It's gonna come out of this right here. I don't want to sell that. But in the state of Alabama, let me see, state of Alabama, redemption, property redemption law. I think it's in the state of Alabama, it's 1 year. Oh man, property maintenance code. Let me just get a Google. Let me see if I can just add another one of these here. Just take that one away. Yeah. Let me see. So, state of Alabama. I knew I messed this up. Alabama land redemption law. Let me see. Whether or not the property owner is still in possession of the property, Alabama statutes give them an opportunity to get it back. The owner of the property that has been purchased at the tax sale has the right to administratively redeem the property from the tax purchaser. I'm just trying to see how long it was. I think it's 1 year in the state of Alabama. And it's going the right of redemption period is 3 years from the date. That's even worse than I thought it was. It's 3 years from the date of the sale of the tax certificate. In order to administratively redeem the property, the owner must pay to the tax purchaser the back taxes paid plus interest, 8% on the sales, any insurance premiums paid by the tax purchaser, and the value of all preservation improvements made to the property. All right. Let's understand what that means. So I don't think that's Alabama, because I don't think Alabama is 3. It can't be Alabama. Oh, it is. Property. Fails to pay there. Yeah, that's Alabama. So it's 3 years. I actually thought it was 1 year. And you know, that all this came from, this is a little history, guys. All this came from some of the guys that worked in Mobile a long time ago. They worked on the ships. My granddad was one of the guys who did that. But they worked on the ships in Pascagoula. So they would build ships and work on ships. And some of those guys would work real hard, and then they have a job and they get laid off, and they have a job to get laid off. So in order to make it fair, some of those guys would work, and then they get laid off and then lose their houses. But then they'll get picked back up the next year or the next couple of months. They get their job back so they can keep working, because it was so inconsistent. It wasn't steady work down there. So this is why they made the redemption laws a little longer here in Alabama. Now, one thing that you really need to look at and pay attention to is redeem the property from let me see. Gosh, where was it at? All right, right here. It says you got to give them the value of preservation improvements made to the property. Well, let's look at what is preservation improvements. I'd like to know that. I think I know what it is, but preservation improvements. There we go, right there. Look like somebody already been typing this in. Preservation improvements are defined as improvements made to preserve the property by properly keeping it in repair for its proper and reasonable use, having due regard for the kind and character of the property at the time of the sale. All right, guys, this is critical, because you see, that's talking about the property itself. It's not talking about the house. This is what we have. This is why it's so hard. People don't understand. Why is it the bills won't go in these local municipalities where you got all these abandoned structures and houses and stuff, and then you just buy that property up or get the tax, purchase the tax, whatever they do with the tax, and then now you got it. It's your house. Now you can build you a house on it. And then once you build your house, you can come in and you could do your thing. You can sell that house and do your thing. Here's the problem with that. So let's just say, for instance, you did that. Well, if you did that, you're taking a chance. If you go to that lot, because it didn't say nothing about the house. So if I go to this lot, tear the whole house, don't even have a house, it's just an empty lot, and I build a structure on that lot, and I spent $200,000 on that structure. According to this right here, they don't have to pay that $200,000. Anything, say for instance, if there was something on that property to preserve that property, say for instance, there was water drainage or something, I had to get that water routed away from that particular property. I had to grade it. I had to grade the property with my excavators, had to go there and grade it to move the water so that the property is okay. Then that may cost $8,000. Yeah, you got to add that $8,000 to it. You got to pay that plus the interest and all that kind of stuff. But the structure itself is not, that's not part of the preservation improvement of the property. And that is the problem. People talking about that. That is the problem. That's why it's not a good deal for a builder to go buy that stuff if they can't get those rights, and then not only that, man, the titles be so messed up, it'd be ridiculous. You got people who used to live there, they moved up north, the grandkids moved up north, and now you got 4 or 5, they left it in the names of, the people moved up north, and they left it in the name of 4 or 5 grandkids that you can't get a hold to. And then each one of them are fighting and bickering with one another. You can't get anything. It's a mess. It is a mess. And so you're costing builders time, Builders don't like to waste time doing that stuff. And guys, and as a builder, the market turns around every 3 months. You can have a totally different market. We can have a seller's market right now. 3 months, it turned into a buyer's market. Another 3 months, you don't know what kind of market you got. So that's why it's critical to be able to go in there, get your permit, get everything done. Boom, I'm building right now. It's critical. All right, let me know what you guys think. Please like, share, and subscribe. And once again, guys, hit that algorithm. That algorithm helps them up when you thumbs up stuff. And that'll let me know what I need to do some more of these videos about that. And if you guys got any comments, please shoot me some comments. You guys have a good one. Thank you.